It's twilight in the villages, midwinter and trembling cold, and the crooked cottages are closed up and silent. No noise, no murmurings or movements to rouse sleeping dogs from their fireside dreams. But not for long, for something stirs in the winter village. Muffled voices disturb the hush, and people arrive from far and wide. They are meeting up at the ancient inn, and upon their lips is the language of lost days, calling them to gather together in the night.
It is, after all, Twelfth Night, the traditional end of the Christmas period, which means it's also the date for the ancient ritual of wassailing. But what is wassailing? Is there really some kind of strange ritual going on here tonight, even in our modern secular age? As I'm waiting for things to get going, let's have a look at the history of this most remarkable forgotten custom before we see it for real, and then ask ourselves that all-important question: what does it all mean?
To put it simply, wassailing is a blessing of the trees, specifically those bearing fruit like the apple, such as those found in the cider-making regions of England like Herefordshire. Its origins are hazy, difficult to pinpoint, quite possibly with roots as deep and old as the trees themselves. Trees of which have been worshipped and venerated since the early days of the human story, the home of wood nymphs, fairies, spirits of nature. In ancient Rome, the goddess Pomona was seen as the protector of such trees and orchards, concerned with their health and fruitfulness, and thus an offering to her was, by extension, a way of seeing to the health of the trees themselves, of which she cared for. The word wassail itself, though, is much later than these early deities and spirits. It means simply good health, and some believe it may have come from an Old Norse salutation, WASSAIL, of which later became corrupted into the Anglo-Saxon greeting of the same meaning, WASSAIL, a phrase of which by then had become associated with the literal drinking to one's health, a kind of miniature ritual in drink, just like we do today when we raise a toast, clinking glasses and saying cheers. We can see this in early writings, such as Geoffrey of Monmouth's 1135 work, The History of the Kings of Britain, where his telling of the Rowena story sees the king return the greeting of Wassaill with the phrase "drink heil" before the wine is consumed in celebration. Something also seen in later texts, such as a manuscript from 1275 in Old English, of which when translated means something akin to "beloved friend, wassail," and the other said, "drink ale." In this exchange the two had, for a moment, suspended time, differences and difficulties, and exchanged a simple yet profound human greeting. "I wish you the best of health. May all be well." In fact, this must have been a very popular greeting, as by 1300 the term wassail had become extended to refer not only to the libation, but even to the actual drink itself, with a special kind of spiced ale or cider, traditionally consumed at Christmas Eve and through to Twelfth Night, known simply as wassail. This drink, passed around and drunk from a large communal bowl, or wassail bowl, came with much merrymaking and drinking to each other's health, and of course it would always be offered with the phrase "Vias heil," the receiver of the beverage replying with "drink heil," In fact, this is the origin of a type of wassailing celebration known as house visiting. Something still very different from the ritual ceremony we would see in Dilwyn, and yet sharing much of the same sentiment. As a 12th night tradition, wassailing was part of the festivities of Christmas, something of which in the Middle Ages was a full 12-day-long celebration, with every day from Christmas Day to Twelfth Night taken up entirely with merrymaking and feasting, interspersed with religious reflection. During this time, you'd be expected to go around eating, drinking, dressing up, visiting friends and neighbours in your village, for a full 12 days non-stop, likely resulting in your collapsing at the end. Celebration and making merry was all but mandatory, and there was no place for humbugs, the festivities being, despite their rowdy and drink-fueled nature, something of a deep spiritual significance. I went to a traditional Christmas fair to have a look, and to see how the house-visiting kind of wassailing would play a part in these wonderful celebrations.
Merry Christmas! Merry Christmas! Ah, who's this? Hello, how are you doing?
So amongst all this merriment, the house visiting wassailers would actually go and visit all of the different houses in their villages and communities, and they might bring the wassail bowl with them, of which of course will be filled with this wonderful spiced drink. And as they go from house to house, they would dress up, they'd sing songs, have a bit of fun, and of course in exchange they would get a drink of the best cider, a slice of cake, some good cheer. And it's a little bit like first footing. The idea that the first person to enter a home on New Year's brings good cheer and good luck into that home. And so for that reason, some of these house visitors were quite rowdy. They would all want to be the first person to enter the wealthy home and say, "I've brought some good cheer and luck into your home, and of course I expect to be repaid with a jug of your best cider." This could also be seen as a type of informal arrangement between the landowners and the labourers, and it was different from begging because the food and drink would be given freely in exchange for the song and merriment of which they actually brought to them. And so it was really a way for the farm owner and those of whom work there to just come together in that moment of wishing each other good health, of course, when he says "Wassail" and they say "Drink hail" and down the cider. That brings them together, even if only for a moment. It's also a little bit like trick-or-treating at Halloween, where of course you dress up and go around the houses for the exchange of sweets and candy. And it's also similar to Christmas caroling, of course, something we still do today, where you go around all the homes singing songs and bringing good cheer to all of those of whom would hear them. Something else that they would do on these house visits, and this is quite a strange one, is they would actually bless the animals as well. So as well as coming into the farmhouse, they would go into the barns and the sheds, and they would actually sprinkle cider onto the animals in there and say some charms and incantations to bless them as well. And also a week after Twelfth Night, so around the 13th of January, would be Plow Monday, and this sees something similar to wassailing, where the actual plough itself is blessed, and sometimes it is brought round the houses as well and dressed up in ribbons and bows like what we've seen, and it can even sometimes be brought into the church itself to be blessed. I think it might be actually happening today.
And there it was, the plough, inside the church, awaiting in the hushed air its own peculiar moment of blessing, as jolly ploughboys feast and sing outside, the new year starting soon. It has been wiped clean of the rust-red soil of field and farm, dressed up in its best to receive the anointing. And so the plough is temporarily made sacred, thanked for its long service, which sees it woken up every morning under dawn's dim light to tread over lonely pasture, with jolly fellows behind it, singing as they toil. The fact that the plough itself would be brought out of the field and into the church is testament to the reality of farming life, and also of a different side to the festivities, a more solemn and mysterious side, something we will shortly return to with the other kind of wassailing. This Plow Monday is the perfect picture of pastoral life, a deep-rooted spiritual connection to the earth, mixed up with the sweet and silly things of song and dance, the Holy Ghost moving unseen in the crowds of carousing wassailers outside.
So back here at the fair, you can really tell that these type of festivities were the perfect way to start the year. They were basically an acknowledgement that the winter season can be hard for everybody, especially those in an agricultural lifestyle where the animals are in the winter pastures, and it can be difficult just to keep warm. The fields are empty, the crops won't grow for another year. And so what better way to start your year by coming around the fire with a glass of the best ale or the best cider and drinking to each other's health in the absolute certainty that the sun will come again, spring will come again, and these dark days will all be over soon.
That harshness of winter could of course be seen and felt in the skeletal branches of the lonely apple orchard, where the celebrations of the nearby village were all but muted, given over to the languid silence of the season, a longing for spring. The green days of summer and the scent of the apples in the warm breeze are gone, leaving only a chill wind to shiver through the unsheltered silhouettes of trees, softly singing of a harvest lost, with no guarantee of return for next year.
I think these orchards, like this one owned by famous cider makers Bulmers, are a bit like a cathedral of the apple. The lines of trees are like aisles and chancels, and there moves around a spirit here, a spirit of the simple things of sky and earth and apple, and we can literally smell it in the breeze. There's also something a little bit eerie about these orchards, especially in these winter months. They feel like we're not quite alone when we walk through them, like some unkenned life hums amongst the trees, like old ways of which are now all but forgotten, move unseen amid the skeletal branches and the crisp leaves underfoot. Folklorist Ruth Tongue described this sensation as the apple tree man, the idea that the oldest tree in the orchard is where the spirit and the fertility of the entire orchard would lay. Now, Tongue probably embellished this story. She'd picked up little bits and pieces of different tales from different regions throughout her studies and created sort of a collage of which took shape into the apple tree man. And yet it's still very easy when walking here to feel like you really aren't alone. Like there is some strangeness in the air. Some spirit of which moves in the branches and reveals itself to us by its fruits, the lifeblood of the orchard, and the cider to follow.
The fact that a good year's harvest was of no guarantee was also something that weighed heavy on the mind of the orchard farmer. Just like with other areas of agriculture, fairies, witches, and other mischievous entities may be believed to tamper with the produce and harvest, make crops fail, trees wither, and all manner of strange misfortunes to befall the farm, where both labourer and master shared a deep respect for signs, charms, and superstitions. There was also the fact that it was a landowner's duty to provide a good drink for their labourers, whether it be a strong ale for harvest supper, or a labourer actually being paid in cider, with a daily allowance of several pints. If your cider was good, it would influence seasonal labourers to work for you, and sow goodwill between the worker and the landowner. For reasons like these, it became part of the wassailing custom to bless not only oneself by visiting houses and drinking good cider, but also to bless the orchard itself, and all of the trees of whom dwelt there. So what actually happened during a wassailing ceremony? It's been described by many, and its details vary from region to region, but it generally took the form of a procession to the orchards on Twelfth Night, sometimes accompanied by music and torchlight. 12 fires would be lit in the orchard, an interesting symbol of which could represent the 12 months of the yearly cycle, followed by the burning of the bush, a ball of straw and twigs of which represented another fire, this time the return of the sun and the coming of spring. With this sun burning in the centre of the orchard, songs and incantations would be sung and shouted, and a circle would be formed around the trees, where cider would be poured onto their roots, sometimes followed by the hanging of slices of cider-soaked toast on their branches. Gunshots would pierce the night air, scaring away the mischievous spirits, and much cider would be drunk and noise would be made, simultaneously giving thanks for the fruits of the year just gone, and awakening the trees from their winter slumber, invigorating them with cider and song, so that they were ready to thrive in the year to follow. These celebrations would often go on long into the night, with multiple orchards wassailed one after the other, before those involved returned to the farmhouse or public house to drink and celebrate with even more music, song, and dance, including, of course, the well-loved chants of wassail and drink ale.
I've got here one of the traditional blessings of which would have been said during these wassailing ceremonies. The origin of it has long been forgotten, and yet it might have went a little something like this. Old apple tree, we wassail thee, and hoping thou will bear, for the Lord doth know where we shall be till apples come another year. For to bear well and bloom well, so merry let us be. Let every man take off his hat and shout to the old apple tree. Old apple tree, we wassail thee, and hoping thou will bear hatfuls, capfuls, 3 bushel bagfuls, and little heaps under the stairs.
So we always spare one on the back, or 7, every so often.
The time has come, and our wassail is about to begin. We're just going to get these lit torches and head down to the orchards. Wassail! here is the bush, ready to be burnt, of course representing the fire of spring, the sun returning.
Is what is called the Herefordshire thorn. This is a thorn tree that has been stuffed with straw. We're going to light this to represent the sun coming back. Put a light with them. I'm going to start at the bottom. Yeah. Wassail!
Drink ale!
The sun reborn! It's nearly time to light the fires. There are 12 fires around the ring. They're representing the year, the months of the year, time in general, the hours on a clock face, potentially even the 12 disciples, being a mishmash of Christian and pagan beliefs. And we have a 13th fire. So this is the fire of eternal renewal. You can then light the fires.
So the bush is burning and the spirit of spring is back here in the orchard. It's time to light the 12 fires of the yearly cycle.
Light the fires!
Wassail!
I'm normally trying to...
Fire! The Herefordshire thorn! A bush! The sun reborn! Oh, let every handful, and crackful, and free knuckle backful, and little each goes to the stairs. Hooray!
Spirit from this orchard and from all orchards in Herefordshire by making the most god-awful and holy racket. Little, screeching, scream, shouting, banging, everything. 1, 2, 3. Now enjoy the fires, enjoy the sound of the wind coming round.
Drink ale! Drink ale!
Rises each morn, may we have a bright harvest of fruit and of corn.
Here's to the plough, the fleece and the pail. May dark never conquer and light never fail.
Here's the health to him that's far away.
Wishing he were nigh. If drinking health could bring him here, I'd drink the cellar dry. Now here's a health to us all, for now we must along. For this time, good sirs, that you and I buggered off
The Dilwyn Wassail was a big success, and it was far from a one-off event. In fact, wassailing has seen something of a revival in recent years. The original practice all but dying away, as the Industrial Revolution meant men's minds were turned to clocks and factories instead of the fields, and the First World War saw the reality of global conflict put a stop to such old frivolities. The villages were barren, the world changing, and it was hard as the 20th century encroached onto the world to find the time anymore, let alone see the point in such outdated superstitions. But no longer, it seems. Tickets for the Dilwyn Wassail sold out just as fast as any modern music festival, and other wassails held around the country fared much the same, and continue to do so, year after year. What could make people take such leave of their senses as to abandon their centrally heated modern homes and stand out in a field in the middle of winter, blessing the trees? If you have visited a wassail, you will find it easy to understand why. The experience may be strange to newcomers, a little bit intimidating even, but it speaks to us of something deeply human, a collective unconscious of time and memory, of which reminds us of our place in the cosmos, and how we are part of the green tapestry of nature and her cycles. Like much in the field of folk revival, wassailing today lets strangers join together in a welcoming ritual that all can understand. No need for complicated dogmas or ways of being. Something very different from the often private affairs of the original orchard wassails. Come together and drink heartily of the cider, wish good health for yourself and your companions, and give thanks to the trees of which sustain us with their fruit. In this regard, it's a turning away from the false promises of a synthetic world. A realization that, amid all our triumphs and creations, we are at risk of drifting away into a whirlwind of plastic imitation, of convenience at the expense of deeper connection. That wassailing still lives, despite a million efforts to pave over our world with ever-expanding alien landscapes, is testament to the simple power of our human spirit in synchronicity with our Mother Earth. The truth, however, is that perhaps we never really lost sight of that spirit at all. It's there, wherever we are. Even behind the haze of a neon city, many hundreds of miles from the wassailed orchard. Just look around you in any pub or restaurant, and you'll see people raising a glass to the health and success of their companion. Good health. All the best. Congratulations. It's the same miniature ritual as the first wassailers. A human signature of well-wishing and of marking an occasion. Whether you can visit an orchard wassail or not, you can carry that spirit within you whenever you pour a glass of your favourite tipple. Raise it in the air, with the winter sun glinting throughout it, and bringing it together in that moment of connection with your loved one or your companion, saying cheers, good health, may all the best be with you. The next time you perform this profoundly human ritual, remember the history of the humble wassail.
We must first step.
A Morris dance.
Hey!
This time, dig it.